Okay, today I'm predicting the Miami Dolphins record prediction. So looking at their roster, obviously they have very good skill position players, probably the best skill position players in the league with Mostert, Tyreek Waddle. Jonnu Smith is about an average tight end. Tua, he obviously has some of his moments, but he's also limited at times as well. And offensive line to me is probably the biggest concern. Their tackles are good with Armstead and Jackson, but their interior offensive line is definitely concerning. Brewer's not exactly known for his pass blocking, and their guards are kind of unproven. Defensive line looks all right if both Chubb and Phillips are healthy. Interior offensive line looked a lot better ever since they signed Campbell. Linebackers are average. David Long and Brooks to me are around average to above average. And their cornerbacks, I still think Ramsey is a very good cornerback. Fuller should be able to fill that hole that Howard left. And their safety, Holland is a very good safety. Poyer, I think he still has a step in him. So the Dolphins roster to me still looks pretty good. Pretty similar to last year outside of Hunt and Wilkins, but they replaced him with veterans, and I believe veteran presence will help this Dolphins team like establish themselves early. So have your first game versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars to me are a very interesting team. They have a solid team all around. Their defensive line is really good. Josh Allen, Trevor is a good quarterback. Uh, it's going to be a close game regardless, but I do think that the Dolphins' explosive offensive plays will get the better of the Jaguars, who really doesn't really have that explosive piece or that superstar player on offense. So I'm going to take the Dolphins here. Then you have week two, Thursday night game against the Bills. Dolphins do not play well against the Bills, but the Bills definitely lost a couple of pieces like Stephon Diggs and obviously Jordan Poyer and their linebackers. But Bills, they still have Josh Allen. Dolphins have not been able to stop Josh Allen. However, I do think the Dolphins can take advantage of the new pieces on the Bills defense and it being on a short week. With Dolphins home field advantage, I'm giving it to the Dolphins here. And week three versus the Seahawks. Seahawks to me, they aren't the most talented team, but their roster doesn't is not that bad. Seahawks have a young defense that could play better this year. Geno Smith can occasionally have his great game. Dolphins. I do think their offense can get the better of the Seahawks defense, but Dolphins struggle on the road a little bit, especially with the Seattle being so far away. So I'm taking the Seahawks here. Then you have week four versus the Titans. Titans to me definitely have potential as a team, but I don't trust Will Levis at all. Calvin Ridley to me is not that good of a corner. It's not that good. And that Titans defense, I don't really their defense did well versus the Dolphins last year, but I think the Dolphins are going to be looking for some revenge. Titans no longer have variables, so I'm taking the Dolphins here. Then you have week five versus the Patriots. Patriots are still a rebuilding team, and even with Tom Brady, the Dolphins do somewhat good versus the Patriots. Um, so I think Tyreek Hill Waddle will be too much for that Patriots defense. I'm not sure how Drake may, but that Dolphins defense is more talented than the Patriots offense. So I'm giving it to the Dolphins here. Then they have an early bye, and then they have them versus the Colts. Dolphins don't exactly do well versus the running quarterbacks like Anthony Richardson. However, the Colts defense do have some pieces like Buckner, but I don't think they'll be enough to stop the Dolphins offense, especially not that Colts secondary. So I'm giving it to the Dolphins here. Then you have week 8 versus the Cardinals. Cardinals are still a rebuilding team. They brought in a couple of veterans. Kyler Murray should be returning, but Dolphins with home field advantage. I just don't see the Cardinals beating that. I don't see. I don't see the Cardinals beating the Dolphins, especially when the Dolphins are at home. They have week 9 versus the Bills. Like I said, the Dolphins, they don't really play well versus the Bills. Their defense cannot stop Josh Allen. The Bills are absolutely, at worst, going to split with the Dolphins. So I'm taking the Bills here. Then you have week 10, the Rams versus the Dolphins on Monday Night Football. This has potential to be a very good game. Rams are an ascending team right now. They got a lot of young players in Puka Nacua and Kobe Turner. However, their defense is still very young, and their cornerback depth is not that great. They're relying on Tre'Davious White and a second-year player, and that might pose problems, especially with Hill and Waddle. However, I believe Stafford and Puka will cause problems for that Dolphins secondary, especially if Chubb and Phillips have not returned to full form yet. And with Rams home field advantage, I'm going to take the Rams here. Then you have Week 11 versus the Raiders. Definitely a trap game for the Dolphins. The Raiders are a really good defense, and they showed that last year when they held the Dolphins to only 20 points. However, Raiders, I don't think their offense is going to be good enough. I'm taking the Dolphins here, especially Miami has a home field advantage. Then week 12 versus the Patriots. I really do not see the Patriots getting a win versus the Dolphins. Their defense may be able to bottle up Tyreek a little bit, depending on how Jared Mayo does. But that Patriots offense with those skill position players aren't going to do crap. So I'm taking the Dolphins here in week 12. Then you have week 13 versus the Packers. Dolphins. This one's gonna be in around November, and the Dolphins are not a cold weather team, especially on a Thursday night on a short week. Even though I believe the Dolphins are slightly more talented than the Packers, um, Packers have too much of a home field advantage and a short week. I'm taking the Packers here. Then you have a week 14 versus the Jets. Jets are one of the few defenses that I think can stop Mostert, Hill, and Waddle. But Tua really hasn't lost to the Jets at all in his career. I don't know how much I trust the Jets' health. Aaron Rodgers has kind of a health history the last couple of years. So does Tyron Smith. When they're healthy, I can definitely see the Jets stealing a game from the Dolphins. But with home field advantage, I'm going to take the Dolphins here. Then week 15 versus the Texans. Texans to me, they're very talented. Their defense, I'm not sure if it's enough to slow down the Dolphins, but I don't think that Dolphins defense, with those linebackers, will be able to contain Diggs, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins and Joe Mixon. So I'm going to take the the Texans here, especially with CJ Stroud. In week 16 versus the Niners, I can definitely see the Dolphins winning this game. They have home field advantage, but Niners, they're too talented right now. Their defense with Fred Warner, Ward, they can definitely shut down Hill and Waddle. And that pass rush will cause problems for Tua. To me, the only way the Dolphins win this is if Chubb and Phillips goes crazy versus Purdy, but I don't see that happening. I'm going to take the Niners here. Then you have week 17 versus the Browns. Like I said earlier, for that Packers, Dolphins are not a cold weather team. It's going to be cold in Cleveland. This one's going to be in like January, early January or late December. Browns have a really good defense at home. This is going to be an ugly game for the Dolphins. I'm going to take the Browns here. Then you have week 18 versus the Jets. The Dolphins do play well versus the Jets. Jets have probably a more talented team than the Dolphins at this point. Their defense is very good. Like I said, can shut down Hill and Waddle. But I'm not sure. I just don't trust the health of. I don't trust Robert Saleh. I don't really trust Rodgers staying healthy the whole year. I don't trust Tyron Smith staying healthy the whole year, or Mike Williams. So I'm gonna give it to the Dolphins sweeping the Jets here. I just don't think the Jets can stay healthy, or deliver when they need it most. So in the end, after the Dolphins going 10-7, 5-1 in the division, 7-1 at home, and 3-6 away.